On December 2nd, the entire Confederate force at Winchester is ordered to withdraw south to Strasburg, Virginia. They are but a corps of observation and do not have sufficient strength to resist the body of Yankees reported to be approaching. 2 days later, Union General John W. Geary, commanding 3,200 infantry with artillery and cavalry support, is about to enter Winchester. He is accompanied by General George S. Greene, one of his brigade commanders. When he gets to within a half-mile of the town, he learns of the large number of smallpox cases in the hospitals. Fearing this worse than the enemy, he detaches part of his force, including the 149th and 137th New York Volunteers, to enter the town. In 2 hours, he and his entire force leave. The men of the Maryland Battalion do not engage with the 149th and 137th New York Volunteers on this occasion, but they will. They will. A few days after the Yankees leave, the Maryland Battalion makes its way back to Winchester, marching through a swirling snowstorm. They move into winter quarters. Company C, the Duval Company, is assigned the entire building on the southeast corner of Main and Water Streets, today's Loudon and Boscawen Streets. For once they are comfortable, but not for long. On the morning of the 13th, the Marylanders are again forced to evacuate, due to a report of the Yankees advancing in large force. They stop again in Strasburg, where they hope to remain for the winter. But on December 18th, 1862, they are forced away yet again by reports of superior Union forces coming their way. They march off to the south. This time, Samuel Duval does not go with them. He has fallen ill, is too weak to be moved. He is left behind in a church in Strasburg, along with 26 other men, including his near neighbors from home, Richard and Samuel Anderson, and 3 other men from Company C. They all know that it is only a matter of time before they will all fall into the hands of the enemy. The war has now scattered the 3 Duval brothers to different fates. By the beginning of June 1863, excitement runs high. The Maryland Battalion is camped at Round Hill when Lieutenant George Thomas returns with a rumor that they will soon be driving the Federals under General Milroy from Winchester. There are frequent reviews and inspections now. June 10th, 1863. The Maryland men break camp and form up in ranks. Along the side of the road, Colonel James Herbert makes a speech. His concluding words are,
"I shall not ask you to go where I won't, but where I will, you shall."
600 men step forward. None could know on this hopeful day that their proud and handsome battalion will experience death and privations in many forms and will ultimately arrive at a place named Appomattox a little less than 2 years hence, their number reduced to 63. June 12th. The enemy is advancing towards them. The Maryland Battalion marches to the top of a hill about a mile from Middletown and forms a line of battle across the road. They wait. For an hour, nothing happens. Then they hear a sudden burst of artillery and musketry. Minutes later, they recognize men from Captain William Raisin's company of 1st Maryland Cavalry racing towards them. But Captain Raisin is not with his men, and there is no enemy in pursuit. Captain Raisin Misunderstanding an attempted warning by Major Harry Gilmore, a Marylander then serving with a Virginia Cavalry Regiment, has been lured into an ambush set up by the 87th Pennsylvania Volunteer Infantry, assisted by Major Michael Kerwin and his 13th Pennsylvania Cavalry. At the same instant, 400 concealed infantrymen and 2 cannons had poured death and destruction into the Maryland cavalrymen. Dead and wounded horses blocked the way as the survivors in the narrow road tried to wheel their mounts and escape. Kate Sperry, a teenager from Winchester who was visiting with a friend, witnessed the ambush from the garret window of the Chrisman house on the Valley Pike.
We were all at the end window near the top of the house. We screamed and begged and waved them back, but it was too late. One, whose horse was shot, fell almost before the door, the horse on him.
After the war, Major Kerwin related what happened when he met Captain Raisin one-on-one that day.
That brave fellow Raisin came at me like a bullet, but I was the stronger and quicker and got in the first blow.
Raisin took a saber wound to the head that knocked him off his horse. Badly wounded, he was taken prisoner. At midnight, the Maryland Battalion is ordered forward. They pass through a sleeping Middletown, then stop to wait for daylight. Resuming their march at dawn, they are observed by a little girl watching from the window of her house.
This morning, about 6, our men began to come in. The Maryland boys with cavalry and artillery. They met the Yanks about Kuhnstown and have been fighting all day. Some of our men are wounded. Sarah Eliza Steele, age 12, Newtown, Virginia.
That night, the 13th of June, 1863, Company C is placed on picket duty. At 6:30 it starts to rain, and soon a severe thunderstorm begins. It rains off and on throughout the night. June 14th, the Maryland Battalion advances towards Winchester. They halt within 300 yards of the town. Shots are fired. They rush forward, engage in a heavy firefight in the streets. They make good progress, but are told to withdraw. General Jubal Early fears the Yankees will shell the town if they remain. Withdrawing, they are pressed by the 5th Maryland, a Federal regiment made up mostly of Baltimore men. The 5th takes up a position in a cemetery, from which it is shortly after driven by the Confederate Marylanders. Company C's commanding officer, Captain Ferdinand Duval, is severely wounded in the knee. The next morning, the Maryland Battalion awakens to an eerie silence. Their scouts say the enemy evacuated the town during the night. They find the bloodied Captain Raisin in the Taylor Hotel. Now they expect to charge one of the 3 heavily defended forts to the north of town. But these have been abandoned also. One, the Star Fort, they occupy that night. The Federals have been completely routed, with great loss of supplies, horses, artillery, and men. General Milroy, hated by the local secessionists because of his harsh occupation of the town, escapes. The Federal 5th Maryland Regiment does not escape. 315 of its men are captured and sent to Camp Parole in Annapolis.